Former US Ambassador to the UN John Bolton said President Trump plans to keep up pressure on North Korea by deploying supercarrier USS Carl Vinson to the Korean Peninsula. He explained the power move was designed to deter Pyongyang from testing weapons during Winter Olympics scheduled to take place in Pyeongchang in February. Mr. Bolton said people were worried that this kind of global concentration on South Korea might provoke the North Koreans into some kind of incident, a missile launch, a nuclear test, or something like that. This was intended to say, don't even think about it, but all the more reason to have it there now. The USS Carl Vinson set sail for the Korean Peninsula last week, accompanied by guided missile destroyers and warships, reaching waters near North Korea before the opening ceremony of South Korea's Pyeongchang Olympics. The Games will begin on February the 8th, with the opening ceremony set to take place the next day. Mr. Bolton also warned against North Korea's propaganda decision to accept meeting South Korean officials to discuss a possible truce. I already mentioned the fact that the USS Carl Vinson was on the move to the North Korean peninsula. It appears to be round about there, near the waters off of North Korea, and I think that they are going to be involved in the bloody nose strike that we've been hearing about on North Korea, the plan from the US to launch strategic strikes against North Korea's nuclear program and their missiles. And we're seeing this build-up that's been happening since last year, preparing military wise, doing military drills, Vigilant Ace with the 230 aircraft, the 3 aircraft carriers that were over there doing drills with the Japanese and the South Koreans. Now this bloody nose attack plan, which seems to be the way that they think they can probably get North Korea to halt its nuclear weapons ambitions, which I just think is kind of crazy, because any strike on North Korea preemptively will escalate into a full-blown war. And as I said in my last report, the war, if it starts in North Korea, Iran pushes their advantage where they are, Russia pushes their advantage where they are, China gets involved, and it then becomes a world war. It may start off in individual locations, but once you've got, pretty much all the major countries involved in a military conflict, it's a world war. And that can quickly escalate into a nuclear world war, which is what we are concerned about. China has not been invited or is refusing to attend this major summit that's been planned by Canada, and it's next week, and it's aimed at showing the international support for a diplomatic solution in North Korea. And China is taking aim at an international summit on North Korea in Vancouver next week, saying the event co-hosted by Canada and the United States is likely to do more harm than good. The Canadian government is keeping a tight lid on which countries have been invited and plan to attend Tuesday's meeting, with Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland is organising, with US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. But a senior government source connected to the summit told Global News Tuesday not to expect to be there. A spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry revealed Wednesday that his country will not be at the table, even as he criticised the meeting and suggested it will set back rather than advance peace efforts. It will only create divisions within the international community and harm joint efforts to appropriately resolve the Korean Peninsula nuclear issue. Russia is also expected to be absent along with China, meaning 2 of North Korea's most important and influential neighbours will be missing when Freeland and Tillerson sit down with other foreign ministers. Now, this meeting is taking place on January the 16th, and as I mentioned, in Vancouver in Canada. It seems there's a lot of indications towards January 16th, a lot of reports I'm, putting in that date. And I don't know if anything's going to happen on January the 17th. I've, already pointed out that it may just be a marker in this timeline that we're looking at, or there could possibly be an event of which I don't know the type of event it will be, but it could be something as small as a major policy change or a major announcement through to military escalation. Something seems to be happening because that is also the same day that the CDC is meeting for their public health response to a nuclear detonation. And that's on January the 16th, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And as I said, I don't know if anything is going to happen, but you've got the meeting in Canada with all the foreign ministers, apart from China and Russia, which are North Korea's closest allies. You've got the USS Carl Vinson over there near the Korean waters, set sail last week. You've got the CDC meeting as well about a nuclear detonation, a public health response to a nuclear detonation on the 16th. And then you've got reports like the North Korean soldiers are sleeping with their boots on. And that's obviously military preparedness. And if something could happen at any time, so you got to sleep with your boots on. That says to me that things are right on the edge. They're right on the edge. I mean, you don't just sleep with your boots on ordinarily, you take them off. But if you don't think you'll have time to put them on, if something happens, then you're going to sleep with them on. And I just wanted to read this report because it kind of gives you a perspective of the North Koreans, of how they see the military maneuvers that are taking place on the Korean Peninsula. So the foreign ministry officials in North Korea made it clear that the Hermit Kingdom does not want war with the US, but it will not shy away from it either. They claim they are convinced the US is set on a course for preemptive war and is shaping the battlefield for military operations against the North. North Korean officials said our soldiers have long been sleeping without removing their boots. Foreign and military affairs correspondent Mr. Vorostov spent time in North Korea and claims it was a sobering experience. Writing in 38 North, he said, during my visit I heard nothing to suggest that North Korea is prepared at this time to be the first to accept the Russian and Chinese proposal for a freeze on its missile and nuclear tests in return for American agreement to freeze its joint military exercises with South Korea. The North Koreans insisted their sovereignty be respected and rejected any preconditions. Although my North Korean interlocutors acknowledged that the Korean Peninsula was sliding toward war, they reaffirmed the country's commitment to achieving nuclear parity with the United States. He goes on to say that North Koreans see the joint military exercises between the US and South Korea as anything but routine. To the contrary, there was a sense among them that the Pentagon has launched the contact reconnaissance phase of a military operation it is planning to undertake on the peninsula. They noted that the geographical features on the Korean Peninsula provided no opportunity for the gradual, methodical build-up of troops to create a superior strike force, as was the case before the US attacked Iraq, and that North Korea would immediately notice such actions and naturally regard them as a casus belli, an act or event that provokes or is used to justify war. In their eyes, the Pentagon is rehearsing elements of a coordinated military operation, one step at a time. The 3 aircraft carrier strike groups that are operating in Korea's East Sea, as well as many other operations, were not just a show of force. North Korea thinks the same about the latest US-South Korean air exercise, Vigilant Ace, which involved 230 aircraft and a large number of varied types of stealth aircraft. To the North Korean perspective, the development of so many stealth planes looks ominous, as does recent exercises practicing decapitation strikes against Kim Jong-un. The military correspondent said North Korean foreign ministry officials did not conceal their surprise that Seoul failed the disparity between perceptions of threat between Americana and South Korean societies. He continued, the North Koreans see growing signs reflecting President Donald Trump's America First principle, that the United States is prepared to accept the terrible loss of lives that would result from a large-scale military conflict with North Korea. In contrast, South Korean public opinion continues to believe that President Trump would never start a war in Korea, and that the tension, crisis-like atmosphere, and belligerent rhetoric are all posturing. The North Korean diplomats said they were surprised that a substantial part of the South Korean elite had missed indications that a majority of Americans think that the US cannot allow the North to acquire a missile capable of delivering a nuclear weapon to the US mainland, and that Pyongyang would strike as soon as it had. But they assert it is a misconception. They said it would be suicidal to attack the US first, and especially with nuclear weapons. We understand that it would be the last day of our country. Even despite the risks, the diplomats said the Trump administration is moving toward a preemptive strike on the communist state. The officials concluded, we are diplomats, not military guys. Only our leader knows the issue in full. And that is how they see things. All the build-up, all the air exercises, all the military exercises on their border, it seems to them, according to this diplomat from North Korea, that the US is preparing themselves for a preemptive strike on North Korea. And you can't reject that basis of thought when you know that they are preparing a preemptive strike on North Korea. and have given it the code name Bloody Nose. They've been very clear that they would strike North Korea if North Korea did some form of provocation. And that was said a long time ago, and North Korea have carried on launching their launching their ballistic missiles and doing their nuclear tests. But I feel that, as I said in the report before, I feel that this is kind of like the last part. If North Korea do test another missile, or they do another nuclear test, I think the bloody nose attack goes ahead, and then things escalate quickly. China gets involved, Russia pushes its advantage, Iran does something, Israel will probably do something, and there you have the very beginnings of a world war. For people who don't believe that a world war could happen, I mean, you just have to look at history and see World War One and World War Two. It's not inconceivable to think there'd be a World War Three. And for people who don't believe that the nuclear weapons will be used, I mean, they were used before. 2 of them, not just one. And the explosive power of these nuclear weapons that they have nowadays is like 100 times stronger than what was dropped on Japan. So this isn't warmongering. This is reality checks. This is the times that we're living in. These are the kind of things that are going on in our society and in our world. And, it's fine for you to blind yourselves as long as you've got access to your TV and your phone. But at the end of the day, whether you keep your eyes closed or not, things will keep on happening, whether you pay attention to them or not. So I've chosen to pay attention. That's why I do these reports and put them out there for you guys to see. I realize that not everyone has time to, go through news reports and try and piece things together. But at the moment, I do have some time, so that's why I do these things. It's not for fun, because reading out loud for me, it's not fun, especially when I get words wrong. Straining my eyes, reading report after report after report is not fun, but I feel it's necessary, and that's why I do it. So that's my report for you guys today. I hope you find it useful, especially if you're doing your own research. You can, work off of this if you like. Always interested in the comments. I do read them all. Sometimes I don't reply to them all, but I do read them all, so, keep them coming. And I just want to tell you guys, as usual, have a good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are, and God bless you.